What's going on, guys? Super exciting tutorial for you today. You're gonna learn some awesome stuff from this one. Before we dive into that, I do want to say, as a video editor who's worked on projects for Future, Gunna, Juice WRLD, Soulja Boy, etc., I know how time consuming and stressful creating videos can be. So if you guys want to create insane video edits and make money from home in a creative way, I've created an ultimate bundle that includes all of my handmade digital tools. Everything from animations, templates, plugins, extensions. All these bundles will be on sale for the next 48 hours. So if you want to save thousands of hours of editing time with all the new visuals you can drag, drop, and create in seconds, check out the link and the sale down below. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, an awesome one, A AP Rocky DMB. I do want to say on first watch, I thought it was a cool video, but once I went back in, I started breaking things down. I started trying to understand how they did certain things. I really got a whole new appreciation for this video. Shout out to AWGE, always making beautiful stuff. Now, the cool thing about this, they use one specific tool, one specific thought processing, but they're able to bend it, make small changes, and use different creative ways of seeing things to make multiple different effects out of that one set of steps. Now, I'll show you exactly what that means. First, let me show you exactly what this effect is. So if I click play here, here's what it is. Ultimately, what they're doing is they're taking a bunch of these different images, and if I go frame by frame here, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time I change a frame, you're getting a different image, but that image is sort of locked together. If you pay attention to the eyes, the nose, everything is in the same spot on the screen. Now, another thing you're gonna notice here, these different film marks, and if we kind of pull over here, you can see that this is a larger film strip. Now, I wanna show you guys here, I have a few tabs open with some useful stuff. This is what's called a contact sheet. So again, here's what that looks like. Here's some iconic contact sheets with some iconic people on there. Essentially, it's sort of just a mashup book of a bunch of different film. Really nice, and it's just a way of displaying multiple photos. Now, what I think they did, they went on set, they used actual film cameras, different digital or analog mediums to take their images, and then they used After Effects to stitch them all together into these different crazy cool effects. There's a bunch of other examples here, like for example, locking on to other specific things, like here where the camera rotates and keeps that thing in the center and locked on. Here's another one where it locks onto the ring. And there's other things like these super collages that go through and have different movements. So there's different ways you can do it, and there's different ways you can go about making it. So I also found this tutorial here, how to make digital contact sheets. So you guys have two options here. You can use a film camera, take your own pictures, create actual film negatives, and then make your own digital contact sheets by just scanning them back onto your computer, following here. But if that's too much work for you guys, if you guys just want to use normal footage, no images, no film, whatever, I'm going to show you how you can use Photoshop to create your own contact sheets and cut the images straight from your footage. So all bases covered. I also found a bunch of free templates for contact sheets, some other free things that I'm going to link below, things that I've been using that I think will be useful. And of course, I'm going to show you all the other things like this collage at the end, really cool stuff, and a bunch of other transitions and set extension things they did throughout the video. So you guys are getting a full tutorial. Hope you are excited, and let's hop right into After Effects to get started. All right, guys, so here we are within After Effects. And before I show you this with all the stylization, blah, 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 let's just show you the bare bones for creating that sort of locked on effect. So we're gonna go over in our project bin here, and I'm going to create a new composition. Now in this new composition, I'm gonna drag in some random footage, and this is from pexels.com, bunch of royalty footage you can practice with if you need to. Again, link down below. So I'm gonna right click, transform, and I'm going to fit this to comp. Now it doesn't matter what the footage is here, I'm just giving you an example of the steps. So to be able to lock onto a specific thing, what you wanna do is select your footage here. You want to go to window and make sure your tracker window is open. And if for any reason any of these are grayed out, what you want to do is just right click and pre-compose the footage first. So again, that's only if this is grayed out. So once you see your tracker window, normally what you would do is click track motion. What we're going to do is click stabilize motion. So it's going to open up your track point, and you can zoom in here. You can click in the box. You'll see if you select, you can kind of change the parameters of how big the box is. But if you click inside the box, you can kind of move this over wherever you want. So you want to track like the face. We'll just kind of put it on his glasses here. We're just going to go ahead and click play. So you see Tracker was doing okay, but with a lot of motion blur like this clip, with a lot of motion, sometimes you may get your track just kind of rolling off like crazy. What you can't do is just manually move your track point. So let's open up our footage. Let's open up this motion tracker that you now see. And you're gonna see once we expand this all this little keyframe data that After Effects was creating. So we can scroll in here and just find wherever our track point messes up. It's right there. And we can just delete all these keyframes. And you can just go in here and move frame by frame. So if you wanna move frame by frame, you can click page down and page up. See, these are already animation on. So you can just move, click, and drag manually to kind of lock onto the specific area. That's only if you're working with a ton of motion blur. That's only if your track is messing up. I recommend, if you can, try and get a clean track. So we've created our keyframe path. To apply this, just click in your tracker window, apply. You want to click OK. Now what you're going to see is After Effects has locked your footage so that it's stabilizing on that specific point. We don't want our footage rolling all over, so what you can do is just select it, click S, and just scale it up. I'll just click V. This is pretty large footage, so it works well for this. And that's how you can get that easy little locked on effect where you see if the head moves, the camera is going to move with it, or whatever, again, you specify. So you can do this with a person's face. You can do this with a specific thing in the video, like something that's moving, like the ring that you saw in that ASAP Rocky video. That's the ultimate basics, super easy. So now that you have this fundamental tool down, being able to stabilize motion with After Effects, let's show you how you can build on that, how you can add in the contact sheet look, and how you can use your understanding of what we just showed you there to be able to make all these different alterations of that stabilized motion. All right, so we showed you the basic stabilizing for video. Now let's get closer to being able to replicate this, where we want it to look like you're flipping through a collage and everything is locked into place. So back in After Effects, this time what I'm gonna do is, again, create another new composition. I'm gonna name this video to photo collage. So I chose this from pexels.com. The only reason being, it shows the person's face throughout it the entire time, so I can pull a lot of those. And there's also a lot of different flashing lighting throughout. So we can get some variation in the face. To be able to take this video and kind of change it into a fast-paced picture collage, we want to first re-export this out. So we're going to go up to File, Export, and we're going to add it to our render queue. So in our render queue here, under our output module, we want to click on where it says lossless, and you're going to want to export this out under here, Format, as a PNG sequence. So PNG sequence, we're going to click OK. And then where it says output to, this is where you can click and just specify where you'd like to save it. So I always recommend whenever you're doing this, again, it's a PNG sequence. So every frame of the video is going to be exported out as an individual image. You're going to have a bunch of different images for each frame, depending on how long your video is. So we want to make a new folder. Right click, new folder. I'm going to name this tutorial, and then we'll click in tutorial face, and I'll just click save. So let's render it. All right, so once you're done rendering, this is what your folder should look like. I'll show you even the thumbnails, and you can see each of those frames rendered out individually. So it's still our video, just chopped into each individual frame. This is what we want to ultimately do. This is what I'm going to show you how to make in a second. Do you see how this composition is a bit more fast and flickery? See if I scroll through there, and I'm not posterizing the time. You see if I click page down, it's a new frame every time. It's just sort of jumpy. It looks more like photos stitched together rather than one smooth video. So that's what we're trying to do here. So to convert our video into that sort of flickery photo look, what I like to do is just create another new folder, and I just call this face randoms, or again, whatever you want. I'm gonna go to my tutorial face composition where I exported out that PNG sequence, and I'm just gonna hold down Control and just select a bunch of different random images here. You can choose how long you want your sequence to be. I'm gonna choose like 46 frames out of this. So whenever I put it at full speed, it'll be like 1 second, 1.5 seconds of actual video. So I'll hold down Control, and I'm just going to click at random some of these frames. All right, so I have, you see down here, 45 different frames. I'm gonna click Control C just to copy them. And then going back, remember we made that new folder, Tut Randoms. I'm gonna click Control V and just paste those random images into there. I think this is a bit more authentic looking than if you were just to posterize time or do some sort of like frame rate changing effect. We'll just go to our project bin, gonna right click and we're going to click import multiple files. So find your folder that we just set up. Mine was tut randoms. Again, this is all the random frames from that PNG sequence that we selected. Hold into here. We're going to select the first one. We're going to import as footage as a PNG sequence. This is an important one. Make sure you force alphabetical order because again, we just picked it random, and then click import and then click done. So once you've done that, there you guys go. You see it's a bit more jittery, it's a bit more random. Your results are going to differ depending on what's happening in your scene. My guy here is standing pretty still, not a lot going on. If there was a bunch of things happening, then you're gonna get a bit more jittery movement or whatever. That's how we can get closer to the style that we're going for. Now, if you really wanted to at this point, you could just slap on a film overlay. Again, I downloaded this one for free and a link will be below. Change your blending mode here to see that. Click this toggle switches and modes button. We'll put that to something like lighten. You can just look up a little curves effect, drop that on there, and you can change that line around until you have your overlay looking the way you want. Again, like I said, if you want to, you can add an overlay, you could add whatever specific look if you're trying to like fake this without stitching everything together. And then you could do what I showed you earlier and apply the stabilized motion. So what you would do from here, select everything, right click and pre-compose. And again, make sure you're adding the designing before you stabilize because you want to stabilize with the overlays and everything already in place. And then again, once I've pre-composed, I'll go to my tracker window and I'll just click stabilize motion. From there, again, you can do the exact same thing, put the tracker in a spot you want to lock on and click play. This time the tracker stayed pretty well on my target, so I won't have to go in manually fix anything unless I want to. I'll click apply. There you guys go. A little bit closer. We have the jittery sort of picture look. We have the stabilization. We have the overlay if you guys really wanted that. If you guys even wanted to take that a step further, you could add in like a motion tile effect. Put your height and width to both 50. Create like a weird film strip out of that or something. If you guys wanted to add like film-like edges onto this, just double click into the pre-comp and you can alter this however you want. So say again, I wanted to make it like film edges on the sides. I would just select my footage, top left, I can alt click the little mask selection until we have our rounded rectangle tool, and I'll just sort of draw like that. Now nothing's happening because we have a second mask. So let's just drag this first one over top. Just click, if you're not seeing those, click M to show your mask options so those pop up. And what I like to do, you see how this edge is very sort of linear. If you want it to look a bit more vintage, you can add a bit of feather. And there you go. Click back to your main comp. This is just a quick little digital replication of the look. So that's pretty cool, but in all reality, it's not exactly what they did. And let me show you the proof of that. So if we again go frame by frame, and you can do this for any of the other parts, I just keep using this one as a decent example. You guys can see how in each of these frames, this framing sometimes is a little bit rotated, it's in different positioning. Every single frame is unique. And that's because a lot of these images that are being aligned, they might be taken at different angles, they might be rotated a bit. So whenever you have your full film sheet here, what it's doing is aligning everything, no matter if the image is rotated, it's making sure they all stay aligned the exact same way. So I showed you the basics of stabilization. I showed you the fake digital way, trying to chop up your footage, make it look jittery like photos. Here's the full-on authentic way, and that is by using our call sheets. So again, if you guys really want to, you can go out, take the images on set. You can follow this tutorial for making your own custom contact sheets, or you can use some of these free templates, which again, I'll have linked down below. So you can download this one for free. If you guys are watching in the future, I might actually just make a bunch of film scans, contact sheet templates. So check the description down below. You may find some useful stuff. All right, so if you guys open up that contact sheet free template, which I found, you guys can just open that up in Photoshop and then go back to your folder where we exported that PNG sequence and just sort of grabbed a bunch of random ones. Make sure you're not selecting any Photoshop layers when you do this, or it'll import into different tabs. Make sure nothing's selected in Photoshop. Select all your images in the folder and then drag them into Photoshop. There's also a little folder in the template where it says put photos here. You can drag everything into that folder. And honestly, from here, it's extremely easy. You just want to go through each of the folders, click Control T and just scale them down and move them into position. If for any reason the photos are kind of bleeding over the edges, you can right click on the layer and rasterize it. And then you can just use your selection tools to delete or cut away any parts that you don't want. So go through here, place all your images in the contact sheet, and for added little effect and value, you guys can even rotate some of the images. That way you'll get kind of twists of the corners whenever you go through with the full stabilized animation. I also included links to some other Photoshop stuff, like some different Kodak scans that I found for free. I feel like it's a bit more designed for people who want to build things from scratch instead of being forced to use that original contact sheet template. So if you want to make your own contact sheet, you can use some of those film scans. You can scour the internet to find other film scans or use your own. It's all up to you. Once you've made your call sheet in Photoshop, file and export the image out as a PNG. I'm going to use this famous Jim Morrison contact sheet that I found on the internet as an example. And I'm just going to walk you through the steps that you need to do in After Effects to create all the stabilization, because it is a bit different. So either way, once you have your contact sheet set up, you want to plop it into After Effects. I'm going to first right click and pre-compose my footage here. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go to my tracker window and I'm going to stabilize motion. Now, there's one big difference here. Because some of these images are rotated, they're not all perfectly aligned. You want to make sure you check on rotation and scale. So you can place your first marker down, and then you want to take that second track point that's just created and just place that at a second point of reference. So for example, if I'm tracking onto the eye, I put the second track point for the rotation on the hair. So again, just choose two easily trackable points. You want to expand your clip to show your motion trackers. Starting at the beginning of your composition, you want to activate all the keyframes for all of those track points. And then you just move frame by frame. Again, click page down to move to the next frame and move your track point over to the next frame. Same with track point 2. Pretty simple. Go to the next frame by clicking page down and moving your track point 1 and 2 over onto the next image. It's extremely easy. It's a tiny bit of manual work, but again, you're just moving a cursor over and then moving over one frame. Super quick, super simple. And the coolest thing about this, again, if I just zoom through here and go down to the point where we have these rotated images, you can still place the track points on the eye and the nose. And whenever we go in to stabilize it, because we're tracking the rotation and the scale, it's still going to align it perfectly. And that's how you can get the cool little discrepancy with the edges. And that's what ultimately creates the full effect. So once you have created all your keyframes, this is what it should look like. Giant zigzag across your call sheet. So to fix that and to align it, you want to again right click and pre-compose. Now this time, make sure you move all attributes into the new composition. Scale into the image that you put your first keyframe or first track point onto. Keep scaling and positioning that image into the center of your frame. Whenever you click play, you're going to see this insanely cool video playthrough of the faces in your contact sheet playing through one after the other, frame by frame. It's like the ultimate little collage effect, I like to say. And again, you don't have to do this for just faces. You can do this for things in the scene. There's a lot of creative ways that they utilize this, which we're going to go through in a bit. So let's go through the video one more time. Let me show you all the parts where they use those steps I just showed you. The contact sheet with the stabilized motion, but in different ways. So these are just examples, ideas of using the exact same steps, but with different thought processing. So here, simple one, just locking onto an object. In this case, it's shoe. Again, you guys could add this to a contact sheet, or you could just add those digital frames. Another one, this time with money, so you can use any sort of physical object that you have a lot of. And you see here that they're starting to play with a specific idea. So this is one thing I want to mention because this can create a whole new look. What you guys can do whenever you are creating your contact sheets, you can strategically place the images so that you have the smaller images first. And then as you go through, you can add in things that are larger images or maybe different perspectives. So that's what they do here. They have sort of a wide shot of money, wide shot of money. And as they keep going through, you start to get closer to the money. And when you play that at full speed, it looks like it's getting larger. So you see, it starts off with a picture of Rihanna super close up, and as we go frame by frame, it's slowly becoming pictures that are a little bit more zoomed out. If you look at these later pictures, it's like full on wide angle lens shots. So that's how you can create this sort of pulling away naturally. So that's one thing to keep in mind. That's more of like a creative thing you can notice and be able to play with. But again, using the exact same steps. Now, if you don't want to go through the steps of meticulously aligning things in the contact sheet, but you do want to have some extra motion, what you can do here is just right click in this gray space in After Effects once you've finished your effect, go to New and create a camera. And then you can just click toggle switches and modes here. And you see this little 3D cube switch. You can just make all these layers a 3D layer just by clicking and dragging down. Now, whenever we open up our camera and we open up the transform, you can create keyframes here at the beginning, like this. Then you can click C, and you see these are your different camera controls that we can toggle through. And you see if I rotate, you can see the full call sheet here in 3D. So you're able to control the position. So say you want to move like zoom super far in, and that's going to create a keyframe. And then by the end of this, you want to zoom far out. So it's a cool way to be able to add some motion into this. You can even activate the motion blur switch here. And if you make this a bit faster, so you want to do like a fast zoom, you might even have like a bit of motion blur coming out, or even add in perspective. You see here, you can add in different rotations and it's still going to keep the locked on effect. So just by changing around some camera things, you can see I've created something completely new, playing with different perspectives. That's why this is such a cool little effect, because there's so many different ways where you can change things. All right, guys, so now to finish this off, let me show you 3 more simple little effects that were throughout the video. I've already taught you the main bread and butter. Let's show you some transitions and then that super scrapbook collage effect that they added at the end. So if you imagine you're holding the camera here filming this, pay attention to the way that the camera moves. Sort of like a match cut for the camera movement with a bit of different blurring in between. So to do something like that, again, you want to grab 2 clips and you want to pay attention to what's happening in the scene here. So in this first shot that I found, we just have a little bit of camera movement where you're sort of swiveling to the right. So I can click this clip, Control-Shift-D, make my transition right about here. In the second clip, I want to find a spot where it's a similar movement. So right about here, he's kind of turning to the right. You can use this spot. Again, it all depends on the movement. You're going to get different results. So I'm going to select a couple of frames where I want to create my transition effect just by clicking Control-Shift-D to add those little cuts. And then I'll select those 2 little transition subclips and pre-compose them together into one clip. To speed up this transition clip in a smooth way, you guys can right click on it, go to time and click enable time remapping. All you have to do is decide your duration. So I'm going to go forward a couple of frames because that's my desired speed. And then I'm going to grab that little value and I'll drag that to the left to remap the time so that the clip is speeding up. If you guys want to, you could even click this little graph editor button and you can smooth out the keyframes by right clicking and adding any different velocity to them. Or you can even manually change the graph. It's all up to you. And then to add some blur on this sped up clip, I'm just going to add a little CC Force motion blur effect. If you guys even want to exaggerate the blur, you could even toss on an echo, but that's pretty much it. You guys could always do speed ramping in Adobe Premiere and do other motion blur stuff. There's tons of different ways to do this, but that's a quick and easy method all within After Effects. Now for any of these set extension clips here, this is pretty simple as well. It's also going to depend heavily on your footage. As an example, I used this drone clip. It's just a waterfall with a bunch of forest and rock on the sides. All you really need to do is drop a motion tile effect onto this clip and just play around with the settings. You can mirror the edges, you can add keyframes to make everything move and look like it's a lot larger and extended than it really is. And then to isolate the part that you want, for example, showing someone on a balcony or keeping the waterfall, in my case, I'm just gonna grab my little mask rectangular selection tool and just cut out the center and add some feather. Very simplistic, and again, depends a lot on your footage. If you want to add a bit more dynamics to this, you guys could always right click in that gray area and add a new camera. And just like we did with zooming into our contact sheets, just enable everything as a 3D layer, turn on that motion blur switch if you want some nice motion blur, and then you can use your camera to create any zooms, rotations, whatever. All right, now on to one of my favorite effects from this video, and I might actually make a full standalone tutorial just for this because I think there's a lot of cool ways you can build on it. But for now, let me show you how you can build out this crazy video collage, as I've been calling it. It's actually extremely easy. First, you want to find your background clip that you're going to be using. I just used this drone clip that I found on pexels.com. Similar to the original video, just some apartment buildings, and we have the drone moving from left to right so we can have some perspective and add in a bunch of different parts if I wanted. In terms of adding the collage bits, all you need to do is gather some footage and then cut out a few moving frames that are interesting and stitch them back into the collage. So super easy to do that. We're going to use our roto brush tool. And I've talked about the roto brush tool in like almost every tutorial I've made. So if you guys don't know how to use it by now, I'm going to leave a tutorial down below. A recent After Effects update has made roto brushing a lot faster. And in this case, you don't have to roto brush a super long amount of time. You only have to roto brush out like a couple of frames, maybe 1 second, and then I'll show you how to loop it in a bit so that you can get that sort of back and forth movement that they had in the original video. So once you have roto brushed out what you would like to put in your composition, and a cool thing to do for this, if you want everything to be sticking to a specific place, you can actually 3D track your background footage. So I'm going to right click on it, go to track and stabilize and track the camera. And then if you want to pick a specific spot that you want something to be placed on, for example, the little guy sitting on the ledge, find the spot where I'd like to paste him, right click and create a track solid. Then all I have to do is go back to the clip that I rotoscoped out, and then to paste it onto that track solid that we marked out earlier, just go to parent on that clip and you want to select your track solid. So I named it sitting track solid, open up your transform settings and click reset. Because the orientation may be messed up, because again, these are 2D layers, you can go into your transform, just change your orientation, rotation, scale, whatever, and now you should successfully have your clip tracked into the right area and moving along with your camera. Pretty cool. I'm going to show you how to loop it now. Extremely easy. Just select it, click Ctrl D to duplicate it, right click on it and go to time and just time reverse it. And if you guys want to, you could just pre-compose that together, that little loop, and just Ctrl D to duplicate it a bunch of times so that it's looped for the full duration of the comp. That's one very in-depth example. You don't have to have people specifically sitting on the edges or whatever. If you want, you don't even have to 3D track them if you don't want to. I just figured I'd show you some cool little ways where you can do this. The real key to building out this effect, making it look like the A$AP Rocky video, is just putting a bunch of time into that. Just repeat the steps that I just showed you to rotoscope out a bunch of more clips. If you guys want, you could slap in some green screen footage to the backgrounds, you could mask, have fun with it, be creative with it. And if you guys want to, again, comment down below. I might just make a full standalone tut just for this and show you guys a bunch more stuff. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you did enjoy, slap a like on the video. Like I said, comment down below any idea, any inspiration you guys had from this, or any other music videos you want to see a tutorial on. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.